Hi everybody and welcome to my channel, Judy in the Skies. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by and checking me out. I appreciate that. And if you've been here before, welcome back. So guess what, you guys? I've got it done. Finally, I have got the interview with Debra Zachau of Grow Your Light. So I'm going to be interviewing her in regards to her tarot card deck, which is called the Clarity Tarot, and also her fabulous book, Decode Tarot. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm glad to be able to share this with you finally. Thanks so much. Here we go.
Hello, Judy. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
I am so thrilled. I'm so excited. So I've got a whole bunch of questions. We're going to talk about your tarot deck, and we're going to talk about your tarot book, all of these wonderful things.
Yay.
So, all right, girl, you ready?
I am ready.
Shoo. All right. Okay. So let me talk. Let's kind of go back way back. If you could start by sharing with our viewers here, what was your first introduction to spirit?
Oh, those ghosts behind your bed or in front of your bed or around your bed, the ghosts in your closet that watch you when you try to, go past them to get to the bathroom. That was my first experience.
When you
Uh,
run?
yeah, when I run. And I knew they were there for sure because for the short time when I was young, my brother and I had to share a bedroom. He
Oh,
saw them too, but my parents said they weren't real. So he said, they're there, but they're not. He was trying to be psychiatrist. What, 5 years old or something. Anyway, so that was that. And then I was blessed with being able to hear angelic choirs,
oh,
and
wow.
it would happen at times, just any time, day or night, whether I was in a public place or a private place. And the music was unbelievable. I could hear every instrument, every voice separately but together, and the music was all over and inside. It was
Wow.
wonderful, but I didn't know why it was happening. And then I started thinking, challenging my own sanity. Maybe I was going crazy. But then at dinner one time, it happened. And my brother, uh, same brother, uh, he said, "Where's that music coming from?" And I thought, oh, it's true. It really did happen.
Yeah.
But he wasn't interested in talking about it. But it
Oh,
was a wonderful blessing that he was at that one time. He heard it too. And I'm thinking, oh, yes, it's true.
validation. Absolutely. That's wow.
Yeah.
So what made you decide you wanted to work with spirit and share your gifts with others?
I just found it so fascinating. I mean, I was afraid of the ghosts, of
Mhm.
course. But then after a while, I heard about people being able to predict the future or all these things. And it was just fascinated. I was fascinated by it. And I would read stories about it and decided that I wanted to study it. So I studied, well, there's a metaphysical shop that happened in my area in the, I forget when it was, early 80s or something. And they had everything. So I took every class
Wow.
that they had, astrology as well, but I'm not very good at astrology. So I gave that up. But the tarot was something I just loved. I had a really good teacher. And so I went and dabbled in that. But the thing is that when you're learning something, there's a big gap between learning something and doing it and then doing it well.
Right.
And so I found a way to jump those hurdles. And that's what I teach today. And that's what these books and the books and deck is all about.
Right.
Because when I learned it, but I would dabble in it. I had a straight job. I was a hairdresser, so I was trying to just do readings in between. It was just exhausting because it just added to the day. But I really was interested in it. And then I wanted, when I moved down to California, I really, really wanted to do tarot well. I wanted to know every single card's meaning without even seeing the card. Somebody say 5 of Cups and I'll know what it is. That was my dream. So I asked spirit, and I had built a relationship with spirit, my spirit guides and things. And I said, when I was working and driving a fair amount, I said, okay, give me a card and then I'm going to visualize what that card is. And then through that through the picture, I'll know what it means.
Uh-huh.
And then I'd go home and look it up or have the book with me and look it up to see if I was right. And then a spirit would ask me, what part of your day was this card?
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was able to put action to it, meaning to it. It's not just outside of me. It was so 5 of Cups is when you feel guilty or rushed. So I felt I did feel a little rushed and guilty about ABC earlier in the day. It was amazing. So I did that for a long time, and then I just got brave and I looked up psychic hotlines and got into a psychic platform that was not very good. I mean, it was good for me because I got to learn,
Right.
and it was wonderful because it was one call after the other, and I was able to learn so much just by doing it. And then what I would do, see, I'm rambling on now, but I would vet the meaning of the cards because we have the traditional meanings of the cards. And what would happen is that I'd see these combinations come up, and then I'd think, I'm going to ask my client if
Oh,
this relates to them to make sure that I'm on the right track.
right.
So I would say, oh, I have a combination of cards here. And traditionally, what it means ABC, do you find that to be true?
Uh-huh.
And sometimes they'd say, not quite. And then I'd tweak it. So, in other words, I have the basic meaning of each card, absolutely. But how it blossoms in a certain person's reading is what I teach
Right. In the real,
in
you
the real
know,
world.
you're actually having pop quizzes with spirit. It
Yeah.
sounds like,
And it was fun. It was really fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to tap into one thing too that I don't know if people really realize about you is you also teach numerology in your courses as well,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
fabulous. Yeah.
I found that numerology doesn't so much, it can predict the future of, it can predict the pattern a person, the future as far as how that person filters information.
Mhm.
And so it's like that. And you can go, it just adds such another layer of things. And I wasn't going to study numerology, but
Really?
yeah, no, but I was doing where I was on the hotlines, and I always ask people, what's your birthday? Because I want it on the record that they're over 18. That's the only reason why I, asked their birthday. And then I
Smart.
thought I should do something about this birthday thing. So then I started dabbling in it and comparing and trying it out. And I found it really enhanced the reading. So I teach them both
Awesome.
alongside each other. Yeah.
So we're talking, first portion of this interview is the Clarity Tarot, right? So what was, how do I say this? How did this come about and what was the inspiration for
Oh,
this?
well, I always wanted to write a book, and I wasn't a designer to make cards, but I've always wanted that. I was teaching tarot in an office,
Mm,
and an artist friend that owned a gallery came in out of the blue, was going to take a class from me. It was on a Saturday. And so she came in and sat through the class. And I said, Kate, I didn't know you were interested in learning tarot. She goes, well, I'm not interested really in learning the craft as much as me wanting to create the images for a deck. And I went,
wow.
oh, perfect. Let's team up. And so I put on the cards keywords that I've learned that would help me if I was reading and I got lost in my awareness. And then so I did the keywords, I did the book.
And I
Um,
want to show them. I want to show
oh
them.
yeah.
This was another thing that I love about what you do is you actually you have the display on your cards. It's a quick guide to help people read a little bit about love and money on the
Yeah.
bottom. Yeah, so if they can see that right
So
there.
yeah, the reason I did that isn't it's a way for people to be to grow and not be book dependent, which is
Mhm.
important. when you're learning the craft. But I don't care how experienced you are. When you're busy, when I get busy, you can be very seasoned and you'll throw down the cards and your mind will go blank. And you can't find the pathway into the room of knowing. It's like, what do I hook into? I'm just blank.
Right.
So that's why I put the keywords on there. You don't have to read every card in the keyword. It's just like, oh, I'm stumped. Where do I go from here? What's the next statement? And I would look at the 5 or 10 cards on the table. My eye would be drawn to one, and I'll just trust that those words are the way into the room of knowing to get back into the reading. So that's why it's there.
Well, it's interesting because you know me, how do I say it? I am not textbook uh, tarot driven. I'm
Right.
more of the visual and the feeling. So I
Mhm.
wanted to share, if you don't mind, how this deck has helped me come up with some really amazing answers to questions that our clients were working with. So I'd like to share a couple of them with our
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
So this is probably like one of my favorites because it's so unusual. So this is the Queen of Cups, and I just want to show this to you real quick. So if I'm going to pull it in a little closer, if you can see that. So, you know, everybody pretty much knows what the Queen of Cups is. She's very an intuitive woman. You know, she's just everything about love and beauty and whatnot. So, but when I was reading for a client, I happened to look at this, and to me, the woman is holding like she's smoking. So it's like there's smoke or something coming out of her mouth, but it's not. It's actually a mountain behind her. So I asked the client, I go, so was this woman, because I know I had closed out the original person we were talking about, but she wanted validation about her question. And so when I pulled this card, I thought it was unusual because she you know, it was a different energy, and she was a smoker, or this woman to me depicted as a smoker. Well, the gal that she had originally questions on was not a smoker, but then someone else said, well, her best friend, which was the woman's grandmother, was a smoker.
Mm.
So in that case, it validated, but it wasn't who she thought it was originally, but it gave her the validation that and the two of them are like best friends. Um,
And I never, I've heard that story, and I never saw the line of white
oh,
before.
really?
And no,
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed it. And it's interesting now. Kate Matthews is the artist, and she did research on her own. And because I didn't want to interrupt that, I had some say in the general, in most of the cards, in the general way to put together, but the little things she adds to it, she researched. So if you see a bird in it, a flower, um, there's some symbols in there that she was drawn to, and that's she put that in it.
Well, she did it for me then
Yeah,
because
yes,
she
she did.
did it for me because this is another perfect example. And I'm going to pull this one up and I'm going to bring it up a little closer if you can even see it. There is some in the background, like little music. Well, this was originally the woman that I pulled that was depicted on the same reading of the other one that I just spoke about. This was the original woman. And so anyway, so I had mentioned to the girl at the time, I said, well, did she sing? Was she a singer? And she said, oh my God, these two used to go karaokeing together. But
I
that was her validation that these two
know that
people were
part.
together. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting.
You do have an amazing way with the cards, and I just want to say this because I'm more of a traditionalist. Only and when I teach classes, up until Judy and one other person, until I met you and another person, I was pretty firm in how I taught the cards because they were a little bit different than the traditional. Not all of them, but some of them. But until I met you, and then you would see all these other things in it, and we'd have these. I'm going to tattle on you. We'd have these group readings. We have a client come in, and then there's people in the class would give this person a reading, and so I'd be monitoring the readings and I'd think to Judy, oh, make a note saying, I'm going to have to talk to her after class, adding too much that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. And then at the end of it, the client would say, oh, Judy, that just hit home run, all aces. And I'm thinking, what? Every single time. Now, it wasn't just once. So I thought, okay, Deb, you're going to have to back up a little bit of what you think you know. And so I'm a better advisor and I'm a better teacher because of you.
Well, I thank you. I mean, because it is interesting because you are so good at the technical part of it. And it's harder for me for some reason, maybe because I was never a very structured student. I was, I've got 4 planets in Scorpio. I mean, it's, and Neptune's in there, and Mercury and Venus and the sun. So I'm like, oh, all over the place. So I'm a very much visual person. So yeah, I do want to say another one. This was really interesting. There was a client who came in and they were talking about this man in their life. And I got this card here and I said, oh, this, and it's really hard because you want to be truthful.
Yeah.
Yet you don't want to be like, blah, 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 blah. So this, I had to be very gentle about it. I said, this gentleman here is very like strong in his words, because it is a sword card, right? So he's, holding the sword and he's holding it over his head. And to me, he's buffed and he's kind of like showing his power and strength. That's how I read this card, that a visual. I mean, I could have pulled any card deck in any sequence, right? But that was the one that I got. And I just thought that was a beautiful image for the client to receive.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
And one more I just want to share with everybody else because I think it's so important. We had a lady who was really adamant about what she was trying to do moving forward in her career. And so I pulled this card, which is the Queen of Pentacles, which is obviously a very fruitful card. It's Pentacles. And what I told her was that I don't see her being a brick and mortar kind of artist. I just didn't see it. I said, you're hiding from the world because I see the world is hidden underneath her cloak. Oh. And I was telling her that her spirit, the 2 women that we had talked about earlier, they're telling her not to hide, like show yourself to the world. So that was just beautiful. Just the cards illustrated to me on how I read for her was amazing. So
that's great. It's very successful. I love your readings. A lot of people love your readings. And I highly recommend a reading with Judy.
Thank you. All right. So one of the other things about her cards that are so amazing, she does have a yes and no on the corners of the cards. So it's beautiful. Can you explain why and how they work?
Yes. So some people who got the deck misunderstood my idea of it. So the idea is this, and this works. You want to frame the question well. You don't want to say, will I ever get married? I'd say, oh, let me reframe that and say, will you meet your person in the next 6 months? And you put an odd number down. I use 5, and then you count whether it's an N for no or Y for yes at the upper, on each card. And if it's more yes, then the answer is yes. If it's more no's, the answer is no. But here it is. That's not the end of the reading. It's just the beginning, because the cards are going to tell you why it's yes and why it's no. I've had plenty of people saying, I have this idea, I want to manifest it. Let's say a business, and I visualize myself to be here in 6 months, blah, blah, blah. Will I make it? Will my dreams come true? Well, then I can do 5 cards, and it says no. That's not the end of it. That's just spirit saying, because we change our life at the level of action, saying that part of her actions or decisions are going to slow that goal down, that success down. So it doesn't mean she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it in that time frame. So inside the 5 cards will tell you what it is. If there's a lot of swords, then it'll be overthinking something. Maybe if there's a lot of wands, there'll be too much action or not enough action, that, but it'll tell you. Now, it's no big secret how I came up with the Y and the N. So and I'm going to tell you the formula. It's just all of the major cards are yes. All of the even numbered cards are yes. All of the odd number cards are no. All of the court cards are no. It could have been the opposite. Doesn't matter. Um, I I felt frustrated a bit because when there was some unboxing, when it first came out, the unboxing, they would go through the majors because those are on the ones on top. They'd go through the majors and see that the tower and the devil card and all those things are yeses. And they say, oh, I don't like this. They are yes. When does yes or no mean good or bad? When does that happen? So it's just information. That's all it is. And so when you do a yes or no, that's not the be all end all of the reading. It tells you so much more.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that you're such a great teacher and instructor, because you give everybody the nuance on the whys of why that is so.
Yes.
And I think that when you take Deborah's course, you get all of that. You get all that information, which is a lot easier than having to try to do this on your own.
Yeah, it is. I think. Yeah, I think it is. It's just such an easy way to help another person. That's why yes, I love the craft. I love what I've learned about it. I like to go forward with it and learn some more. But the whole idea is that I would like to have people who want to read professionally or just read well for friends. We need competent, accurate advisors in the world, especially now. When someone comes to you, it comes to me, and they're in crisis between their numbers and the cards, I will offer them the right combination of words to first move them into peace enough to hear the message, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that, and that's what you do as well. It's like you move someone into it. You will have the right combination of it. Speed and accuracy, I teach that. So I want to educate people who want to do this,
right,
into being really outstanding advisors.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I wanted people to know you, because you're just so amazing. I have one of my favorite questions is, what is your favorite card out of your deck, or just in the card decks in themselves, and why is that? Like, what card do you find that is your favorite card, and which is your least likely? Which one gives you pause?
So there is a card that I really like. It's the Two of Swords, because the woman is just so arched and her swords are here. She's blindfolded. I have a book trailer or a deck trailer on my site. And right when the music changes, she starts turning around in this incredible, I just love the way she looks. And it's just wonderful. And then there's also the Chariot. I enjoy the Chariot as well. Yeah, Chariot.
Oh, let me find that one.
Oh, see, we didn't practice beforehand.
Right? Watch me. It's probably at the very bottom. It's always that way.
I'm trying to think if there's one. There's one card I had trouble with, not in this deck, but in any deck. It was just in tarot in general. And I went to someone in Europe, I bought some mentor time from a teacher in Europe. And I said, I cannot get over this card because I gave a reading with it, and it's an absolute reason, the definition of that card. I'm not going to share what the card is because I don't want you to get hung up in my stuff. But it means it means to get better, and things for this one person did not get better. And so I had issue with that. And so she was suggesting just to form a new narrative around it. And she even suggested sleeping with it under your pillow, getting to
Oh,
know it differently. I still kind of skim over that because not every card that hits the table is going to be in the reading. And because it's personal and I don't resonate with that card, sometimes I just pass it by. Sometimes I mention a little bit about it, but it's not one that I resonate. And see, and that's what another thing I want to teach, because you won't resonate with every card.
right.
But it does mean that if you know every card, then there's 78 ways spirit can talk to you. 78 ways,
Amazing.
yeah, that you can get a message for someone. And if it's not in one card, they'll give it to you in another card.
Another one.
Yeah.
So I found the Chariot.
Uh-huh.
There she is,
Yeah.
and she's magnificent. When I
Yeah.
pulled this card, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day, and it says on here, like, don't rush, just guide in steady ways. And this is in regards to money, right? When I look at this card, I always think like coming in hot. She's coming in. So,
It is a fast card.
yeah. And then I look at her, like, depending on if it's for, like, I had a client who she was just going through some issues, and I said, you are Wonder Woman, because she reminded me of Wonder Woman. That's the first thing that came into my head, as opposed to being hot, like the moving forward.
Yeah.
This image gave me that, you are Wonder Woman, and that's what Spirit needed her to know, that even though this card means something, the images that I got was that she, at this point with this client, was Wonder Woman, and she's doing the best job, like,
Yeah.
more than what she's thinking that she's, feeling inside.
Right. So the
Sorry.
slow and steady message is this, because originally, as many of you probably know, the Chariot is, you need to you have to get your control, get your control energy on to make sure both horses are pointed straight ahead to the same horizon, because if your horses are pointed this way, your chariot can't go anywhere. So that's the message, is to just stronghold and control the situation so you can do it. Well, that's true, you can do that, but usually don't you think that's kind of a negative meaning? Make sure you're strong, and it makes tension in a client, right? Or
Well, I get the image of Ben-Hur when Charlton Heston is holding the horse reins. It's like they're making the turns, right? And they're like almost going to collapse with each other. And, he's holding on to him. The only way you can control the turn is by holding the horses together.
right.
Yeah, so.
But the thing is I describe how you do that, not that you have to do that.
Right.
So it's just slow and steady. You're going to have, even though it's a fast card, it's fast moving energy and everything. You just methodically, just one foot in front of the other, and your horses will be fine. But that's one of the differences in this card. I did read a review that someone disagreed with one of my definitions, but you have to remember, you can find definitions. The Two of Swords will always mean the Two of Swords anywhere in the world, any deck. But in my deck, you're going to get a nuance that I feel is a little more rich. That'll open up a little bit different idea, and that could definitely spark into the room of knowing, going into the room of knowing then. And then once you're there, then you get download. That's my idea. These cards get me down a path into a room of knowing. That doesn't mean I lay down my cards, because I want to make sure I'm still in my intuition and not in my imagination. So
Right.
I use the cards then after that. So I'm getting ideas and getting these visuals and stuff. And I use my cards not to predict what Spirit wants me to say. I just use the cards to tell me whether I'm on the right track. Did I slip into my own stuff, my own history, my own pain, trauma? I mean, because that's in your imagination. Then the cards are going to tell me, no, you got to get your horses, get that chariot back.
And, yeah.
So that's
perfect. That is great. And that's why I'm telling you folks, she's amazing. So horses, so let me see. I think we pretty much, I have my little note here that says what was the easiest card to create and which was the more challenging one.
Um, you'd have to ask Kate about that because,
Okay.
but I don't have just that one card that I have an issue with that isn't anybody's problem. It's my own thing. Um, and we did discuss some things back and forth. She did give me some input, and which is great. But if anybody likes the images, she's definitely for for hire. She does this for a living, so she likes to illustrate books and things like that. But
Oh, great. Nice,
yeah,
nice look for her for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So we're going to go into the Decode the Tarot, but before we do this, I want to ask you, this is an off topic. So this is something new. And I wanted you to share with everybody because also do house remote space clearing.
Right.
Share with us and our viewers what that looks like.
So I'm going to go kind of way off to the right and then come back into the center because I learned through soul realignment, soul awareness, soul profiling. I studied that for a while, a long while, and I still study it. It's an amazing service because it helps in many, many ways. So there's the soul profile that I do that is it's whether you're a mono soul or walk-in soul, whether you what planet is your origin, what when you the planet of origin that you when you first spark from God, you landed somewhere, and so you learn those traits. So the planet of origin, and then your divine gifts. And I usually go into, if there's time, I go into soul specializations. Excuse me. So then that's one part, and then the soul realignment goes into the golden web, your memory system, whether you misremembered the past or have unjustified karma. You got vows and things that at the time that I check your Akashic records, if anything comes out during that reading, that tells me it's become a block and restriction.
Wow.
And so it doesn't mean that it's been a block and restriction all your life. It's just that it shows that there's something going on here. When I had mine done, my soul specialization was third order escort. And those people help people into the world and out of the world kind of
Wow.
thing. And so I worked with hospice. So it was like, I was more of the out of the world kind of person, but I'm able to, and you can, anyone can do this. It's not just, but I have a specialization in it where I can remotely go into your home or your property that you own. I can't do a neighborhood, but I can do the property you own and close portals, gateways, bind or remove, reassign land, that type of thing, entities that are there. Um, and I do that remotely, but in the TV they go out
Out
and
there.
film it out there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that kind of budget,
Right.
but so I do. Um, and you guys can practice this too. I use Google Earth.
Oh,
Type the address in, and it's going to get you really close to
mhm.
whatever that was. It might be a little old, outdated, it might be new, you can't tell, but you'll be able to see portals. You'll be able to see a lot of different things that are around in that area. Now if you see a portal but the image is 6 months old, it doesn't matter. It just shows that that portal is cycling in and out, and you need to close it. So the
Wow.
portal way is what entities use to come and go, aliens and all that stuff come and go. Gateways are really dangerous because you'll just be constantly crazy because there's
Yeah.
so many different energies coming in and out. But just keep clearing the area. But there's a magnetism of some sort on the property that you're a magnet for something, even when you're here, it doesn't have to be property clearing. It can be personal, like an entity that's hanging with you. You know,
Yeah.
earthbound spirits, they're around all the time. Ghosts are earthbound spirits that have been on the planet for a long time, gained some power. And those are the ones that are the most tempestuous in my book, because they don't have a God spark. They're dead. We
Mhm.
have a God spark. We have a line of vital force energy from God, right? They hook into whatever their energy is, whatever gives them room to breathe. It could be a negative, usually lower vibrations, and so they'll tap that on you and run these ideas. It come in. It'll open up as an idea. You have an idea. Oh, you remembered something you did decades ago that you shouldn't have said or shouldn't have done, and you were regretting it. What brought that on? Well, it
Uh,
wasn't your memory. It's that from the outside of you. It's not the inside of you. So
mhm.
that's when you recognize it, and then you're able to clear it. But yes, thanks for bringing that up. I do a
Yeah.
lot of stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so that's not a lot of people can do that stuff, so it's really interesting. So I thought I would share that because I know you do a lot of different
Thank
modalities and that you
you.
work with different types of energy.
Yeah.
So let's head up with your Decode Tarot, master meanings, reversals, and combinations. And I like the fact that you do have reversals, because a lot of other tarot books don't cover that, or they choose not to.
Mhm.
I do want to talk about, oh, and this book was just released in 2024.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and today's April 1st of 2025. So this was just released. Got a nice
I
crisp
think it
book.
was 2024, was
First
it?
edition.
22, 2023. I can't remember. Excuse me.
So I want to go to the beginning where in your introduction, I want to read something really quick because I thought this was really nice. It says, there are two kinds of people in the world: people who are discovering themselves and people who are remembering themselves. You mentioned that one isn't better or more talented than the other, but the way they learn is different.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I
Right.
think that,
So you are one of that, a good example of that.
mhm,
So it means that you had you were open to new ideas through knowledge, you know, like a little seed of knowledge, and all of a sudden it blossoms into this new way of reading, right?
yeah.
So that's you remembering.
So that's great, because I was going to say here, because most people are attracted to my work are remembering themselves.
Hmm.
So I'm remembering myself.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So I also, it says here, it's important to remember that a person is never bound by these predictions, but an advisor reads the client's energy signature or signature of the client's person of interest. And please share with us why you state that here. And I think it's really important that people need to know that, being a reader and a client.
Right. Right. So when this happens a fair amount, you know, let's say a lady calls and says, uh, my boyfriend just left. We had a fight. He slammed the door. He left. What's going to happen? Well, I'd get some information about him. And if I can tap into him, then I read what's going on. And from his perspective of the incident and not hers. And so I'd say, Spirit would say in the cards that he's got a lot on his mind, maybe trouble with work or something like that. And she would invariably say, he's not mentioned that to me. And I would remind her, this is not your reading. This is his reading. And that's important to understand. You got to back up far enough to figure out the whole reason why he just slammed the door. It's not just what happened an hour ago, it's what happened last week. It's what happened earlier, 3 hours ago. Um, so that's how I tap into someone else. If I have their birthday, if I have their first name, I can usually make a good connection
Mhm.
with that. But I give them perspective, their perspective, you know, what's happening with them. I don't say, oh, he's thinking this, he's thinking that. I, you know, a lot of times people are engaged and I get the reverse hierophant during a fight. They're you know, rethinking the marriage or the wedding, right? Um, but a lot of if I get the hermit for him. I'd say, do not go to him and try to figure this out right now because it's
Right.
a
Give me some time.
and that's horribly hard for women to do. We got a problem, we got to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's not in their best interest for the relationship.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you did mention something that I want to ask you. You mentioned reversals, and on your book you mentioned it too. So do you shuffle your cards and flip them over, or do you only work however they were set up that day, and you just do it?
Yeah. However they get set up, I'll flip them or flop them, or but it's interesting because everyone has a cadence of how they work the cards, and
Mm-hmm.
I usually shuffle 3 or 4 times, and then as I'm reading, I'm shuffling them around in my hand. But the same cards come up sometimes, yes, but when it happens too much, then I just grab another deck and start fresh from another deck. If the same cards are happening in another deck, then it's like spirit saying, pay attention, I'm giving you the answer. But I have a couple of decks that that for that. But I just throw them. Now, this is what I teach. If you're not comfortable seeing a reversal, don't read reversals.
Right.
And if you read reversals, but it doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right, like for instance, here's a good example. Like feeling regret. Let's pick on the the
Yeah.
5 of cups, right? Let's talk about the guy that slammed the door. And I see the 5 of cups upright for him. He's feeling kind of guilty about what he did. He felt he could do better. If I have the 5 of cups reversed, it's like, no, I'm not guilty. If I was guilty, I'm totally over it. So not every time does the reversal mean worse at all. Right. So on some cards, yes, and some of them you just kind of feel your way through. So however they land on another thing is that you don't have to read every card that lands on the table, as I mentioned earlier. And it could be there's a card on the table that just was there as a placeholder because the next card is the one you want. Then just move over it.
Yeah.
And maybe that card will come back into the conversation near the end of the reading, that type of thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because like I tried doing the reversals, and for me it wasn't resonating like you said. But I noticed that when I do get a reversal, which is rare, but they happen, then that means for me, pay attention. That is huge. That is something big. So that's how I've been noticing that is the type of readings that works for me in that regard. One of the things I wanted to show our audience is that you have beautiful illustration, and I like the fact that your fonts and everything are where I can actually read them.
I insisted on that.
You're doing beautifully, and you actually used every single one of the cards, and you use the original Rider Waite tarot deck. Yes. And I think it was smart because everybody usually pretty much starts with them or more familiar with them. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to share with our audience is that, and it was interesting because I noticed it, excuse me, you start off with part 1 is mastering the minors. Yeah. And then you go to part 2, mastering the court cards. And then you move to mastering with the majors, which is usually backwards.
It is.
Just my style.
It is backwards, but it's so important because it was easy to teach the numbers with the minors.
Okay. Because I think you have a specific reason for teaching that structure.
Well, also let's start with the everyday because the minor cards are the everyday life, and the court cards are the people in your everyday life, and then the major cards are the morals and ethics of your everyday life.
Okay.
So why start with that when we need to start as a pedestrian first and learn which ones do what? Because I am a big believer in giving grounded tangible steps you can make, practical steps, because we are living on this planet 3D in
Yeah.
all its densities. And so I don't want, I mean, unless someone's building their faith and their spirituality, then I can go into some flowery stuff. But for the most part, I want people to learn how to serve others well for the crisis they have or their discomfort that they have in real life. So I started with the minors, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And it just, it works. Like you said, it's your everyday, then to the more the milestones, up to
Mhm.
the majors. So you do have, a couple of spreads in here, and mainly the Celtic cross that you
Yeah.
use, right? And
Yeah.
then, what else was I going to share with everybody here? Um,
I want to say something about the Celtic cross.
yeah.
So those of you that are listening that use the Celtic cross, mine is not the be all end all. You can pull a Celtic cross in different ways. And I know I had to put like 1, 2, 3, 4. So you know the pattern and everything, but don't go by me. You can throw them any way you want. Um, I just want to say that. But it's hard to teach, to teach a spread without numbering them. So I just
Right.
want, yeah.
And that's what I do. I'm guilty of that because I'll go across and then I'll just do one read. And then I'm like, okay, so I try to do it, but it doesn't make any sense to me. My little brain doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And then when I do it, I can go from left to all the way to the bottom because it shows a pattern because my brain works like these little patterns.
Nice little puzzles. Yeah.
Yeah. So the little squirrel brain, that's how I read.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do they find all, is there anything else you want to say? Please just,
Oh, gosh. I just really appreciate there is something I change in the Decode Tarot because the court cards, uh, I I put in there something that I just want people to think about. They don't have to do it. Now the court cards are kind of tough to some people find it tough to figure them out. So when I suggest in the book, and it sounds like it's an absolute, but I shouldn't have, I wish I would have gone back and rewritten that.
Mhm.
But if you did the pages, if you are people who are dependent people, this can be children, it could be disabled adults, it could be someone who is under the care of another person to make their decisions. All of those are pages in real life. And then the uh, the knights are men and women who are your contemporaries.
Okay.
All right. So, and then kings and queens are above you. So it makes it easier to move into mediumship when you have that structure in mind. Because if I'm reading for someone 80 years old, this is someone older than that. And so it could be someone in spirit. But also, it this is very important. Let's say I have a king in my life and I'm older. I mean, it's not my dad, he's not alive, right? But it
Right.
might be someone who carries paper on me. So in other words, my mortgage, my car
Oh,
note, or someone who I owe something to. So then you can kind of open your mind to that. Now it's just a suggestion, but in the book it shows that it's like that's how you read. And I regret that. But I always want to say it here.
okay. That makes sense. And I think we had that conversation in
Yeah,
class too. So,
yeah.
one other thing I wanted to share uh, before we wrap this up is: do you ever use a signifier card?
I don't, but I know of people who do.
Mhm.
And the only reason, or the only time I do, I'm glad you asked that, is when I do mediumship. And I teach the way to, I do mediumship in the book. I won't go into it now, but that's the only thing. I just keep dealing cards out until I get a reverse court.
Okay.
And so
Right.
that reverse court, that's the person coming in. And then the cards right after that is the message from that. So I might have a stack this big, right,
Yeah.
of cards before I could get to a reverse court. But so yeah, I guess I do read it from that, but only mediumship.
Okay. And then one of the things I didn't mention, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier. What do you do to prepare yourself for reading for your client?
Right now, I don't do a whole lot. Now, this is a good opportunity for me to teach you how to, soak into a salt scrub and do all this stuff,
Mhm.
meditate and all that stuff. I do not do that.
Mhm.
Um, I am able to tap in right away. I could come to the table sick as a dog, and once I get into a reading, I'm perfect.
Showtime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shows, but it's not pretentious. It's not. It's just like that's the space where I'm happiest, and so it doesn't matter how I come to the table. It's I'm going to be very good and happy because it's something you learn, and I love people who do rituals. I think that's great, but sometimes, just sometimes, people think there has to be so much ritual prior to doing a good reading, tapping into spirit, and the lines are thinner now. We have a new
Mhm.
earth. We have new things, new opportunities, and things are coming in faster. So if you sometimes when people do a lot of ritual, it makes me think, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What are you afraid of? Right?
Mhm.
What's keeping you from that reading? That type of thing. So no, I just come. I don't do any ritual.
Well, that's interesting because Neptune is now going into Aries, so Neptune is nebulous and it's spiritual, right? It talks about the seen and unseen.
Mhm.
So yeah, I get that. As a matter of fact, today, because this has happened, and everybody I think is feeling a little bit kind of like just kind of feeling our way through this.
Yeah.
But I've been feeling a little bit. I called it miscombobulated. It's like when you're walking, but the floor meets you before you step into.
Oh, interesting. Wow, I like that.
And I'm like, what is going on here? So this morning, I'm like, I need to take a bath, not a shower. I need to take a bath, salt water,
Yeah.
Epsom salt, and it really helps. It helped
Yeah.
me today. I hadn't done that in a while, so it's like if you have to do it, folks, go
Yeah,
for
yeah. Your question was what I do to prepare for reading, and
it.
that's I don't need that. But yeah, if you're feeling that there's something sticky, then you
Yeah,
need
right.
to cleanse it
Or,
off. Sure.
yeah, or go outside and take your socks off and ground yourself for
Mhm.
several minutes, taking in some light. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
also pretty good. Well, thank you. So how do we find all your goodies,
Oh.
your value?
So I have a website. It's growyourlight.com. It's also my name.com. I have two domains pointed to the same site, and you can see I have all the information there. I have a whole section on soul realignment, soul awareness, and soul profiles. I have a free ebook. So here's the thing though about it. 5 seconds after you land on my page, there'll be a pop-up. If you
Mhm.
click on that for the free download, then you get the link right away. If you wait and go to the store part of my you have to give them your address, your phone, you have to give them everything, but just go with the pop-up. And it will tell you all about the soul realignment, the planet of origin, the soul gifts, ghosts, walk-ins. It'll tell you a overview of that. Then I have a YouTube channel, and it's at Grow Your Light with Debra Zachau, but just at Grow Your Light. What else do I have?
You're very active on that, so people
Good.
just need to tap in. You're
Right,
doing
right.
something like every couple of days, so you've got that.
Yeah, I love collaborating with people.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I've mentioned classes. I do standalone classes, but I also have a membership on my YouTube channel. And so you come on in, and we meet once a week. As it stands now, it's once a week, and then you come in and I teach you how to do awesome readings, or we go down. It's tarot and numbers for the
Mhm.
most part, but I meet you where you are. So whoever comes in has a question. That's where we go. That's
Yeah.
what we answer.
Nice.
Yeah,
And then we do collaboratively once a month that we just
yeah,
started last month actually, and we just 2 months ago now,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And we do readings for people on like a round robin, I guess. What do we call it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And see, that's the thing. where do you go? Because everyone has read a tarot book and tarot deck. And then what's the next step after that? What do you do then? And that is to get your bearings and get some practice in with friends and all that stuff. But that's easy to do, right? What's after that?
Right.
Well, that's where we come in,
Yes.
because you start getting the idea that you're able to present, and then we'll get you on YouTube if you want to. I don't know, but just getting on, going anywhere where you could read a stranger is where it's so exciting, because spirit is like really talking to you. They're not talking to you like, oh, your friend, you knew your friend, this and that. It's really remarkable.
That's why that's where the magic happens. And I have to say to everybody, it's funny when Debra basically kicked me out. I said that she kicked me out of the nest. Like I didn't have to come out of the closet to be a reader. I just basically got kicked out of the nest. She just pushed me out. And I'll never forget, I had to do it that day. And I kept getting that song from Silver Star Convention. And I'm like, it was that song Fly, and it was Fly, Robin, Fly. And I thought it was something different. And I happened to look it up, and it was back in 1975. That's 49 years ago.
Oh my
and
God.
Come up with that name and that song. And so when I read that, there's only like 7, I think, what is it? It's 7 words in the whole song. Fly, Robin, fly up to the sky. That's it. That's the whole song for like 3 minutes.
Cool. That was the message you got?
That was the message. That was my message.
Well,
Thanks,
there was another student that got angry with me.
Oh,
and she started arguing really bad. She's just so frustrated. And I say to everyone, you know me long enough, I will offend you. And apparently I for the last time. And she came at me really, really strong. And I said, oh, you're up leveling. You know, when you start arguing with the teacher, you're up leveling. You think, okay, the next step. And now she's reading professionally.
Isn't that funny? For her, you had to like saw the tree down.
Well, no, I didn't even know that she was ready, but because the confrontation was over the top, and I'm thinking, oh, I smell God in this. There's something here. I didn't get defensive. I did a little bit, but I didn't. It wasn't overwhelming, and that was just my ego anyway. But I'm thinking, this is so odd to have someone this hostile.
Right.
And I thought, it's because she's ready to go out and do her own thing. And God bless her, she did.
Yeah.
She did. And I encouraged it. And I said, it's time for you to do it. And she's very happy. She's very good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, everybody, there you go. That's Debra Zachau. She's fabulous. Please, like I said, like and subscribe, check out her YouTube channel as well as her website. And if you want, please sign up for her courses. You will not be disappointed. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.